Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. It's a very exciting day. Today's episode number 100 of this Small Business War Stories podcast. It is unbelievable to me that almost 2 years ago I started on this adventure of podcasting. Covered definitely over 10,000, probably closer to 12,000 miles around the country right now, interviewing different people, sitting down with people in their environment, and it's been an amazing, amazing experience. I've learned so much. So thank you for listening. Today we have a really special episode with Matt Bizer and Ellee Fletcher of Luck Reunion. This episode is special for many different reasons, not the least of which is that we recorded it at Willie Nelson's ranch here in Spicewood, Texas, right in the hill country outside of Austin. And Ellee is actually Willie's grandniece. And we all sat down and talked about this. They have this amazing thing that started as a kind of like an underground secret gathering party during South by Southwest of artists and people who knew about it. And now it's grown into its own entity with they have different publications. They have something called a Luck Journal. And they're going out to different events around the country and really creating a community around people who appreciate music and art and the way of living that is really espoused by folks like Willie Nelson and his family and the people they surround themselves with. So this was really, really special for me, and I'm really excited. It's an emotional time to have this 100th episode of Small Business War Stories. This podcast is brought to you by Proven. Proven.com is the company that I started. It is a great small business hiring tool. So if you need to hire for your small business, go to proven.com. And we also have some great resources for small businesses for you to learn more about the stories of other people in the Small Business War Stories podcast or other things that may be important for you to run your small business. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode number 100 of Small Business War Stories in Luck, Texas, with Matt Bizer and Ellee Fletcher. And we are live here in beautiful Luck, Texas. And today we're doing episode number 100 of Small Business War Stories. And I have the pleasure and honor to sit down here with Matt Bizer, who is the founder of Luck Reunion. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, it's really cool to be here. So we're actually sitting, just so that our audience has a little bit of a mental image, in one of the buildings that was on, so we're in Luck, Texas, which is Willie Nelson's ranch. Mm-hmm. And this was a set that was originally built for Red-Headed Stranger, right? For the movie?
Yeah, it was, I think, 1985, 86.
Yeah.
86, I think.
Okay.
It was the set of the Red-Headed Stranger, and we're actually sitting in the world headquarters right now, which has been refurbished in the last few years after a tornado that happened out here in the ranch. But this is sort of Willie's clubhouse and where he plays poker and sort of his hang when he's in town.
That's great. That's great. So he actually, what percentage of the time does he live here?
As far as I understand, I think Willie basically is on the road a lot of the year, and I think in the times so they have a house in Maui, in Hawaii, and I think that in the times between going on tour and when they have short runs when they're off for a little bit, I think this is sort of that staging home where they live here on the times in between, some of the holidays, some of the things where they have gaps in tour.
Very cool.
But yeah, I think that, when they have a long gap, they like to go back to Maui for a bit. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, so. Maui, that's interesting. I think Chris Christopherson also has a house in Maui, right? He lives in Hana, I think. I'm actually not quite sure. I know they've got like a total little posse there of all their friends. For some reason, I thought,
like the Wilson brothers and they have a family hang there, and I know, I haven't actually visited. Ellee goes up there quite a few times. They've done it, and the boys, and everybody's sort of another whole little village. It seems like they have a community in every city they live in. So
okay, very cool. So you've started building something really magical, and I first found out about Luck Reunion through Tecovas, who was one of your sponsors.
Yeah, definitely.
And Paul was actually on the show in an early episode of Small Business War Stories, and they were out here during South by Southwest for your event, being one of the sponsors. And I showed up and I came, and it's absolutely magical what you do here, where you basically turn this for one day into this, how would you even describe it? It's like a gathering of like-minded people with, some world-class artists, musical artists and graphic artists and other kind of artists, and they come together for one day. What was the inspiration to even do that in the first place?
Well, I think it's been an evolution. I think that our vision for the project has expanded quite a bit over the years, and we really see this as an amazing, magical place where a whole generation and sort of it represents a generation, an amazing legacy with Willie. And I think that we wanted to keep that moving. We didn't want that to die. With the way that the world has evolved in music and things like that, we really want to preserve a place where people really get together and build community and celebrate music together. And I think that in our mind, what better place could that be than Willie's Ranch?
Yeah.
Where we could make it sort of a place that just represented that gathering and celebration. Yeah. And so, it sort of started as a happy accident, and then we saw the magic, and since then we've been trying to capture that.
Tell me about the happy accident. So what happened? What was it?
So the whole project started... I guess it's been 10 years now, or 8 years that we've been doing this project. And I was involved in film, actually, and worked in the camera department on movies. And I was working on a movie with the Nelson family, actually, that actually Chris Christopherson and a bunch of other people were in. I want to say it was almost 10 years ago now.
Okay.
And I met the family a little bit there. And, I've never heard about Luck. And so what's really wild is I used to film my friends' bands, and I had a lot of, all my friends were musicians. I'm from New Braunfels, Texas, which is sort of a hill country music place. And
yeah, oh, absolutely.
So my best friends used to be in this band, and one of them, they split up years ago, but one of them started a new band called The Happenings, and they were out touring on the road. And the other friend of mine, Johnny, he... lived here in the Austin area, and he toured. He still played music, and so in a strange chance, I threw a South by Southwest party with Johnny, and him and I called this, we had this weird event we called Bang the Milkmaid, which is an idea he had in his back pocket, and we threw this party in Austin, and it actually was cool, and a bunch of people came and kind of sold it out and had a really good time. And but a lot of people were always like, "You're really good at this, you should do that." And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
You mean putting events together?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, that's just not me. I don't want to be I'm not a promoter. I'm not, that's not what I'm going to do. And so after that, it just was kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then I went on the road with my other friend's band from the same band, which is sort of they're all childhood friends. And so I went on tour with them to New York. And while we were in New York, I actually met Ellee. And we had this one conversation one night and kind of found out the link in her relationship with the family, and just we hit it off. And
what is that link?
Well, so Ellee is actually, I guess you would call it grandniece. She's Bobby Nelson's granddaughter.
Bobby Nelson's granddaughter. Okay, got it.
So but the interesting part is, so she lived in New York and was a publicist and had a whole other track that was perfect. It's sort of like everyone that came together slowly for this project, had the right tools to do the job.
Yeah.
But none of us ever planned on doing it. And so when we met in New York and hit it off, we became close friends. And with everyone else, it just sort of came to be where one day she was like, "Hey, you want to throw another party? You should go see Luck." And it was this moment where I was like, "I don't know what that is." And she was like, "You got to go see it. It's Willie's Ranch. It's this amazing place." And so she's like, "We used to do childhood plays there, and it was this thing." And so it was their play town they grew up in.
Yeah.
And then we came out and saw it, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah. Because it is a Western town. I mean, how many buildings do we have here? 15 or so?
Yeah, I want to say it's 8, 9 buildings that are remaining. I mean, some of the originals, and then there's been some new, there's been multiple movies that have shot here over the years and added to it, and it's just been this evolving sort of thing. And it started with just this set that was supposed to. I think the legend is it was supposed to burn down in the movie, and Willie didn't want to burn it down.
Right. Yeah, that's in his book.
He liked Western Town, and he always loved westerns, and so he kept it as his playland, and all of his children and his family have gotten to experience that as well.
Yeah.
So the evolution of that sort of with us is like it just all sort of came together, and we had now a property, then a place where we want to do this really special thing. And so we put together the first event. We actually went out and found our first business partner, and launched that together. And the experience was like really incredible. And so it was sort of a party we wanted to throw, and it was like this secret party. We thought it was really cool. Well, and after we did it, basically everyone was like, you can't stop doing this.
Right.
And so
what was the first year you did this?
So that was in 2015, right? 2015?
2015. So this is, okay, so I've only missed one then. So I've done the last two, so you've done three of them.
Oh, wait. So 2012. You're going to have to edit now. I'm like asking questions.
No,
yeah, so it's been 8 years.
Fine.
So
fine.
we had.
Why don't we have Ellee join? She's right there. She can join the. We asking her questions, and we need to have her here. I think.
This is the defunct. Yeah, this is the challenge we have. Is that we're partners and we run this thing, but Ellie's the publicist, so she likes to sit in the corner and play publicist. But we're gonna have to make her join.
Awesome. And Ellee is joining here with her dog Fox.
Hey
and
guys.
Fox and Muddy Waggers were running around earlier. So if you want to bring a chair up, and then yeah, this is what we do at Small Business War Stories. We improvise. That's fine.
We corner each other.
Yeah, Ellie's rolling a chair over in Willie Nelson's clubhouse. And this is what we do at Small Business War Stories. It's all real, in person. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we talked about having Ellee join us as a guest earlier, and she was being like, I don't know, I feel like you're going to talk about each other. But now Matt keeps looking back at her.
I can't tell the whole story without mentioning the roots of it.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, Ellee.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was playing publicist in the corner, that's for sure.
Okay.
But hello.
Yes, awesome. So started coming to this property when you were a little girl.
Yes, I actually grew up right around the corner, and this was not safe, but we had an old gas golf cart, and my parents would just let me drive wherever I wanted.
Perfect.
So my cousins, Willie's two youngest sons, grew up out here as well, so we came out together and we'd just hang and get, nails in our feet and just like run around. We trick-or-treated here every year.
Yeah.
Had the Easter services every year. So this was kind of, my backyard as much as theirs. But now it's just so special being able to share this with Matt and, see our vision here.
That's
in
awesome.
Such a special place.
Yeah, it's so cool. So cool. So had you ever thought about throwing a party here before? How did it occur to you to say, hey, Matt, we should throw a party at Luck?
Well, with everything he was doing with the initial South by event and just kind of the ideas we started talking about, he actually said one year, I want to kidnap people. This was right? He said, I want to blindfold people, put them in a field, pick them up, and they won't know where they're going. And it's maybe dial that back a little bit.
Well, we just wanted to make an experience where somebody was completely blown away, but couldn't really explain where they went or how they went. And the funny part is this kind of was that in its own way. Everybody that came here was like, I don't know, there's a party at Willie Nelson's ranch and everything's free, and they just invited us. And so it kind of fulfilled that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you got your rogue dream, but without being illegal. No, but when he started talking about, the vision for, that kind of rogue party idea, I mean, it just occurred to me. I was like, well, okay, let's go look at this place, and never looked back.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first event was what year then?
The first official event, I want to say, was maybe, it's been almost 10 years.
Yeah, it was 8 years ago. It was the eighth. This will be the 9th festival year this year.
Correct.
That we've had an event at Luck. And so it sort of evolved from, a party that we threw out here, and we found partners and sponsors and did that, to, it was 3 years ago that we officially sort of became Luck Reunion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did a little bit of a rebrand.
Yeah.
I like to say we've been, throwing music celebrations on this property for 8 years.
Yeah, and it's been the Luck Reunion for the last 3. So, I mean, essentially, we started this as a party out here, and the first few years we built this cult following. I mean, essentially we had this just this diehard group of people who knew that there was this secret event happening during South by, and that it was going on at Willie's, And we were also operating sort of under the radar with the authorities. We had the cops come out of, like, literally we had Gary Clark Jr. had the plug pulled on him, like, the last song, and the cop said you can play one more song, and Gary Clark played like a 9-minute version of Bright Lights the first year of the festival.
Yeah, and I feel like we have audio. There was something, I mean, he was basically like, screw this.
Yeah.
And, you know, whatever he said on stage was amazing, and we're like, okay, we might get shut down, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It was cool.
And so, you know, essentially after, like, that, we basically had this proving ground and this thing that was happening out here, and so about 3 years ago, or 2015 or so, Annie approached us and was sort of like, okay, look, like, you guys have been doing this, and this thing's real now, and let's handle it real and treat it like a business and build this with us involved.
Yeah,
and
because
so
it started with the events, but I mean, we're going to get into more of what you guys are doing, but you know, there's a lot more that's happening now that you're building, you know, this into something else, right? It's one thing to throw a party once a year, but you guys are, you know, building a brand. But before we go into that, have you guys ever recorded? I mean, like, that'd be cool to release like a record with like performances from Luck and have Gary Clark Jr. You know, playing a 9-minute version of Bright Lights.
And the Father John Misty. That was my favorite.
I mean, every year there's been incredible stories and performances.
Yeah. What happened with Father John Misty?
Well, he, first of all, basically ditched his backing band. Not going to say who it was supposed to be, but played an incredible set. Just him, you know, kind of echoing throughout the town. It was really cool. And then at the end, he basically put down his guitar and was like, what the hell are all you people doing here? Don't you have jobs? And I, like, no one, we couldn't really tell if he was
this was the early, like, nobody knew the dry, like, humor, the whole story of, like, in the character of Father John Misty. Like, I think, you know, it was kind of an amazingly hilarious situation to have out here. And
you did have a little CD at one point from that year. That
you
kind of, there were those moments on there.
Yeah, totally.
You should sell it.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, in general, like, we have a ton of, like, story content and project, and I think that's honestly just like the rest of the festival and the project, there's been an evolution of the whole thing. And I think that as we started to realize how much of an amazing story we had and how much content we were capturing and how much there was, we started to try to figure out what to do with it. And I think that's the evolution of what now is the Luck Journal, is that we needed a place for these things. And that the way the industry is designed in the music industry, there's a lot of uphill challenges with content for anyone doing content, whether it's the brands, whether it's bands, whether it's a promoter, whether it's an organization who's a media company. There's a lot of challenges because the industry is built on old ideals, and now we're doing all these crazy new modern things with music and clearances, and artists want to be heard and people want to do really cool things, but they also want to be protected and everybody wants to get paid. And so we've been trying to evolve models of something that we can create these magical moments and put them out and create ways to maybe monetize them or do something for the artist or create different assets that people can own and be tangible and go into history. And it's now about navigating how to do that in a new system and, like, where can we put it? Where does it live?
And you're in a really interesting position because you're creating a business for which there aren't a lot of prior businesses to model that after, right? So you're basically starting with a party and then trying to figure out how do you take content in, like, a brave new world of music, of the music business, where, you know, you have streaming and people are making, you know, a minute amount of money compared to what they used to selling records. And you're almost like day by day at the bleeding edge inventing what it means to have a musical content company based on this idea of luck. So that's both awesome and terrifying, I'm sure.
Oh,
right? So how does that feel? Tell me more about that.
I mean, it feels like every day is like we're reinventing wheels that I mean, every meeting and every conversation we have, we don't have a good answer as to, like, a prior example. Or, like, when we were writing a business plan, we're like, I don't know anybody. They're like, what are some examples of direct competition? It's like, I don't know. Let's try to write it out. Like, it's everyone, like, everyone's doing stuff based on, like, models, and we're really, like, backwards engineering the models. And I think that we're still always trying to find out what's changing. What are artists and labels and publishing companies get excited about, what benefits them. How do we make that be something that's symbiotic and we both win from? And so I think that all of the things that we do are evolutions of, like, that that sort of ideal is like, how do we adapt to the reality versus the idealistic version of what's going on? Like, and I think the record industry operates on ideals of what things should be, and we're trying to come in a little bit every once in a while and disrupt a tiny bit and be like, well, maybe we can do this another way. And a lot of times when you're the pioneer, you get shot in the foot a little.
Yeah, what's an example of that without offending anybody? Well, what's an example of something that you've encountered where you're trying to do things a little bit differently?
Well, I mean, I would say our like luck sessions, like our series we started about. So what pioneered the Luck Journal and what led to us understanding the challenges and trying to evolve that was that we launched what we called the Luck Sessions, and we did our first ones in Nashville 3 years ago during the Americana Music Festival.
Right. You guys just did a pop-up there a few weeks ago.
We just did it again. Yeah, we've been evolving this concept's been evolving. We called it the Luck Mansion Sessions. We took an old East Nashville manor that was actually a plantation home, turned it into a recording studio with Third Man Records, and we recorded these duet records that were like, basically two different artists who either kind of knew each other, were inspired by each other, or had never even worked together or met, including, actually we're sitting out here today with Langhorne Slim, who's playing our event tonight. He did one with Lily May, who was a Third Man artist. And
actually, I went to see her when I was on tour for the podcast. The last time I interviewed Third Man, she was playing that night, and that when they're lathe cutting the record at Third Man. So I was at that show.
So essentially, we paired them together, and they'd never met before. They didn't even know each other. And we paired them together, and they literally got together. And I think like the night before, or like the weekend before their recording session, 2 days later, they wrote 2 songs, and they said that it literally just spilled out, and they wrote 2 brand new songs and recorded them. And we captured it live in the room straight to tape and recorded those, and it's amazing. And I think that what we found is that after that project, which was so inspiring, everybody was inspired, making it, doing it, everybody wanted to see the success. We realized very quickly, whoa, we opened a huge can of worms. Because what did we do? We took the 8 different artists from different labels with different teams, with different managers who all have their own record deals, who exhibit different rules of like, they can release this, they can do that, they can do this.
Yeah, how do you negotiate that? Because
you don't. So that's the problem. That's the challenge. Is we basically went in from there, and Third Man, was on the battleground floor too, trying to negotiate these deals. And what we found is that like there wasn't a standard for this. And so
now Ben and Third Man have done this a few times, where they do live sessions with artists that are signed to other labels, and they do live at Third Man, right?
Yes. And so they've had experience with it, which is why we felt confident going into it with Third Man. But again, the project, because of the complexity and how many artists it was and whatever, it's trickled out. I mean, it was something that we hoped, and the idea of the project when we sat down and brainstormed it was to pump it out in a couple months. And it was like, Third Man had just got their pressing plant open in Detroit, and their big goal was like, let's press these as one of the first things we do out of the pressing plant. It's going to be really exciting. And the way that it evolved with negotiations and dealings, and it just became like, we got permission for this one. Let's put this one out. Let's do this one. And they trickle out. And it became, we actually, and this is funny to say, but the last session's like still not out yet. And it's now been pressed and everything's approved, but like,
so you guys have the Luck Sessions on vinyl?
We do. And so there's the entire series is actually available at Third Man. And they have them on for sale at the store and online, and there's still a couple more that are coming out, the last few. And so we've done them in batches of like 2. And so that's been evolving. It's coming out. And I think that we now are seeing opportunities to do more things like that, but we've learned from the story of it and how it works, just the timeline and the challenges of it. And so it's evolved our business model.
That's awesome.
Went back into Luck Mansion the second year, wanting to do sessions, and we're literally like, we had to explain to everybody, like, we'd love to put out a collaborative album with this, but
we can't.
Well, it's completely cost prohibitive. I don't think Third Man's going to recoup that. I don't think we did. We paid for the recording and the sessions and the camera time, and we had a whole crew, thousands of dollars to bring a team together to build this project and buy tape and record it. And, at the end of the day, like, that doesn't get recouped because the model doesn't allow it, and so that's something that we had to rebuild.
That. So are you now doing these things in a way that you can make money with it?
Yes.
Okay.
And except for it's still, the margins are slim. And I think that we keep evolving to make those margins slightly wider while respecting everyone we work with. And I think the biggest challenge we find is that we never want to take advantage of the artist, but also we have a upside down business model. Like, we're throwing a 3,000 person event with free drinks, with artists headlining that could sell it out by themselves, that would get a larger guarantee than the entire booking budget we have for the entire day of events.
Yeah.
With all of the infrastructure of a 30,000 person festival put onto a ranch that can only park 800 cars.
Yeah, no, I know.
We're
I've been here.
We're on an island. We're on an island here.
I park next to the Lux sign all the way up the hill.
Exactly. So we're idealists in that we want to keep doing it, but the challenges are real. And so if it wasn't for like a really loyal group of brand partners who get it and they see the value and the authenticity of what we're doing, and like I always hate the being like we're authentic, but like at the end of the day, like our vision is an authentic
we
vision.
are just to validate that a little bit. We are sitting here at Willie Nelson's clubhouse with Willie Nelson's grandniece, and actually the people that you have play here are fantastic. Like you said, many of them could sell out the whole thing by themselves. And you are kind of carrying the flag forward of something that's really important of like American music tradition. So I mean I think that is important, and I do believe that's why you're getting all this attention and all this credibility, right?
Yeah, I mean I think we're idealist believers in something, and we see that there is a future in it, and that we can potentially make a respectable living maybe doing it someday. But I think that right now, I mean, we're blood, sweat, and tears 8 years in, and like I think we took our first checks in the last year, and I think that this thing to us is more of like, we believe in what it can be, we believe in the legacies of the people involved, and we believe in like preserving a place where people can still gather regardless of like all their ideals or all their political opinions or their histories or their families, just like Willie did, bring them together in one place and celebrate over music and break bread. And whether it's food or music or drinks or, over craft or culture or something that we're doing, the symbiosis of everything that we're doing is about community. It's about rebuilding communities in this country, which is something that we think that lived like. Music used to be something that people gathered together. Every town had a dance hall in Texas, and the dance hall was where on Saturday night you got together and you got together with your community, and you got drunk, you got.
And you grew up in New Braunfels, which has Green Hall, which is a major center of that kind of thing. Now we're getting deeper into like really the core of why this podcast exists, right? So the reason I go around the country, and this podcast is actually also not a money making venture. It's it's part of a larger company that I started 9 years ago. But Muddy Wagger's, lay down, buddy. Sorry, my dog Muddy Wagger is getting really excited. He wants to play again with Fox, with your dog. But the reason why I do this is exactly that. It's like finding that spirit of community and finding how it is that people can reconnect through each other's stories, right? So while, you and Beth Blackwell happen to know each other, I presume, but there's a lot of folks that have been guests on the podcast that don't necessarily know each other, but who can like hear other people's stories and get something out of that, right? And in some ways, I feel like on the musical front, that's kind of what you're doing. You're bringing together people who might not have, otherwise come together.
Absolutely.
And trying to lead that. So what does this mean to you? I mean, like you having grown up with all this, like having this tradition, like having a real vehicle through which you can propel what was your childhood and the tradition of your family. What do you feel about that?
I mean, I think, like Matt said, and this is, just the ability, we really both believe from the bottom of our hearts in this kind of community, coming together over music. And I think we have that in common, in different ways. We both grew up in a very, in music, in the music world, surrounded by, live music and really authentic, amazing artists who, are just genuinely good in themselves and not, sucking the teat of, the industry. So I think, this is, to me, the perfect place to kind of bring our, combined passion for that community to life. Because that's really what Luck Texas has been for so many artists. Just even, Billy Joe Shaver and Chris Christopherson, coming here to hang out and shoot the shit with Willie and like play pool. Sorry, am I not allowed to curse?
No, you can curse. We'll put an explicit.
I was like, I knew it was going to come out.
No. We'll put an explicit tag on it. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. But I really do feel like this place embodies that, and I've always felt a really deep connection to it. obviously, and I think Matt did the minute that, we kind of started talking about the legacy of this place. He's like, we feel the same way about it, even though we've had different experiences here. But it feels really special, and the fact that the family is super grateful. I think they see that we actually really believe in what we're doing and why it's here.
Yeah, so to what extent is the family involved today in like the actual, so how much of what you do you talk to them and like you figure out like, okay, we're doing this, like what do you guys think? And versus it's like, the kernel of everything is here, but you're going out and doing something.
Well, Willie is our landlord. It's my favorite thing to say.
Yeah.
But no, they are pretty involved. His wife Annie has been really helpful and instrumental in, first of all, making sure that we can be here and kind of setting that up for us, but also, kind of contributing creative ideas of artists. They really do kind of spread the word, when they're on tour with, amazing people, they're talking about luck. So that's, to me, I think one of the biggest things.
I think at the end of the day, they have full-time careers, all of them. The boys in the last few years, especially Lucas in the last year, we've watched them, out here, and like, Ellie's grown up with them and spent her whole life, but, even since I started, I've watched them become like, sort of a surf rocky band, like with Lucas, like they came out the first year and like was like finding his way on stage and just starting to really come into himself to like in the last few years. It's like he really became like a true, fully realized artist himself.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful to watch us from the outside. And so like he's now built a career, and Micah's like both building a music career and an art career, and like he's building his own world.
Right.
And the beauty of like I think their family is like that everybody is doing their own projects. All the kids seem to have their own things, and they all have a million outside endeavors. And Annie's involved in activism and their projects, and then with Willie's Reserve and all the projects that the family's involved in. I think that this is a piece to the puzzle, but I think it's a huge puzzle. And even like in conversations we have with the other brands that the family works with, and with Willie's Reserve, and with Sony, with Willie's record labels and everything else, like we have lots of like powwows where we're like, how do we all work together? Like we try to figure out how this story works together in one big machine so that we can better represent everything. And I think that we hear out all the ideas, and then we at the same time, we find ourselves like texting the boys, trying to be like, who do you want to play? Like, what would you like to see this year? Trying to catch up while they're like, while they're on a tour bus in like Montana, and we're trying to be like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to like brainstorm who you think should be with you this year? Like whatever, it's a constant like, evolution there. But I think that at the root of it all, the core team is us and a few core people who work, our hearts out year round, and we meet with them a few times a year and talk, and we brainstorm the greater perspective of what's going to happen, and then and then as any family would, every once in a while we get like a text or a call that's like, hey, do this, or hey, meet this person, or hey, do this. And it's like sometimes they're amazing.
Do you ever get them saying like they're upset or something, like don't do that?
I think
only in funny ways.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I feel like there have been moments where we're like, oh crap.
Well, we learning our place within the like whole greater world of like Willie Nelson's family, community, world, brand, people. It's so much bigger than we think even every day. I think that like they all have their own careers, every one of them. They all have their own endeavors and goals. And then yet there's an entire family of people supported by him. The Willie Nelson and family is a real thing. He has an entire organization that is not only living off of him, but supporting them, and they all have their individual projects. And so I think we always are learning our place in that ecosystem.
Right.
I don't think it ever is going to stop. I think it'll change and evolve as every process does. And I think that we've like stepped on toes at times and learned, okay, that's a place we don't cross. And like there's little lines that have been drawn that like we learn as we go. And but it's sort of like that sort of comes back to the family community of it all. It's like sort of like with your own family, you find out where your boundaries are and you test them, and then we
100%.
And every once in a while we'll have like a thing, but it's pretty healthy. We all do really respect each other, and I think like, Annie will jump in and like have an opinion on something, and then we'll be like, oh crap, we didn't plan on that, and like we'll have to all scramble and run around, and she knows that, and like I think she gets a kick out of it sometimes watching us run in circles. But
at the end of the day too, I feel, I think we're both proud and we just feel very supported by them at the end of the day. And I think, Luke and Micah too, like take a kind of ownership, and they feel invested.
For our audience, Luke and Micah are two
yes.
of Willie's kids, right?
Yes.
Luke Nelson, and Micah plays as Particle Kid. That's his name in this project.
And he also is in, when they play with Neil Young, he
Okay.
is in That Promise of the Real. So they're busy.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
a
he's got
little bit
multiple
busy.
projects, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I
Particle
would say
Kid.
Micah, it's hard to keep up with because he's
Yeah.
got a lot of side projects. I mean, I think I just got an invite the other day to like a Halloween Space Jam
Yeah.
party in Los Angeles. I mean, he's very involved in the art community in multiple levels, and so like I can't keep track of it.
No.
Sometimes I have to literally like ask him what he's doing. I'm like, what band are you going to bring
Yeah.
this year? You know?
But so
Yeah.
you were talking about
go
that.
ahead.
No, I think, and it's important for us, obviously to have the whole family's support, but I do think that Luke and Micah like take pride in this project. And that's a good thing to know, especially, just we're, in the same generation, we're all, around the same age, and just having, that support from, this generation of the family is, it's something I think we should be
Yeah.
proud of. And they're proud of,
It
what's
seems to
here.
me like you guys are almost doing the impossible of capturing lightning in a bottle, and it's working. But it's also like knock on wood, right? There's got to be some days, like if I were you, where you're like, don't screw this up, because it's and it's
day.
growing every day.
Oh yeah, you get zapped all the time.
Yeah.
It's like when you're holding lightning. Sometimes
Yeah.
you get
I mean, literally.
Yeah, our hair stands up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we're like, that's what keeps it exciting.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to every day get better at it.
Yeah.
So getting back to where you want to take this as a business. So you started with the kernel of a underground party that turned into an official event, right? And then you added things like the Luck sessions or like the Mansion sessions, where you're doing recordings and figuring out. We were talking about a little bit about the dynamics of the music industry. You're also doing the Luck Journal, which you alluded to, which is, it's not just music. I mean, there's photographic content, there are articles, and so that's more of like almost like I wouldn't want to say like a virtual magazine. Is that a good
And
way to
that's
put
kind
it?
of the goal with that, definitely. And it's definitely overarching, kind of a cultural publication. We're doing a lot with food and profiling makers and the hat makers, the designers, I mean, it kind of runs the gamut. So we're working a lot on content that isn't just music, and that is kind of, that people whose ethos is kind of aligns with, what we're doing and the people we're gathering here.
Yeah, and I think that the extension of that is that we're essentially like we've been known as a festival, but we see all of these stories and all these people and the people involved that don't necessarily get framed or get the attention or get celebrated. At the end of the day, like when you throw a music festival at Willie Nelson's Ranch, it's Willie Nelson's Ranch, and it's a beautiful thing, and like everybody's going to talk about that and get their press bite or get their hit because they're trying to get at the top Instagram or whatever it is. But there's a million amazing people behind this in every form and facet, from the vendors to the artists to the makers. And I think so we were just like, how do we let people know who these people are? How do we let people invest in not just the name but the community? And so it just evolved where we were like, we need a platform, we need a place to raise up these names and these stories. And so this year we've started building that slowly, and I think that you're going to see a lot more of it in 2019. I mean, this is just barely touched. Yeah.
So what's your vision for the journal? What do you want to do with it?
I mean, I think, kind of building off what Matt said, it's a very natural extension of the brand for us, because I think, both of us and our team, we all in our own way, like we're very interested in storytelling, and, on one level, the festival is that, and, we're kind of giving artists a platform to, tell their story from the stage. But I think, diving back into the fabric of the community, the people, putting those people on stage, the people dressing those people. So I think, we're definitely new to building out a media publication from scratch.
That's actually the exact same reason why I go out there. It's like, to be a storyteller and to listen to the stories of all these people who are doing that. So,
So I think, we really just want to build that, and we're putting a lot of focus into it. We have an amazing team behind it. And so I think, eventually we'd love to take it to like, a maybe quarterly print edition. I mean, that's way down the road. But
I mean, I think out of all the conversations we've had, it's like we want to do physical things that are keepsakes, but we also I think the biggest root of why it started was how do we tell the story year round, and how do we engage? Like we talk about this community all the time and how we're a community. How do we actually harbor that now? And so in our ways, it's like it gives us a chance to, in a world that's becoming more and more digital all the time, be a part of that conversation and build a community there too.
Yeah.
And so we can seek out people online and in places where we, when you do the gathering, the reunion, which was what this is only once a year, and it's a reunion of all the people that we work with throughout the year.
Right.
And so how do we keep those relationships alive, and how do we keep building them and build new ones?
But you're also doing smaller side events. So you did the event in Nashville for Americana Festival. You're doing something tonight. Can you talk about what you're doing tonight? It's going to air. This is going to air January 2nd. So
yeah, no, totally. So I mean, I think that by now, I mean, like if this is airing in January, I mean, you would be knowing that we've thrown our first Lux Social, and the Lux Social is actually our pilot project, and we really thought that during the ACL weeks would be an amazing time to sort of like, while people were in town, could get a taste of it. But it's our pilot version of creating these like smaller gatherings throughout the year that are centered around the idea of that conversation, and like around bringing a group of people together to break bread and have a moment to really enjoy something physical and real. And so these events are just keeping the conversation going, and it gives us a chance, like, we can tell stories from these events, we can evolve stories in and out of them, and I think that they're little benchmarks for us.
Let's go a little deeper into that, because I think, so just from going to Luck Journal Instagram right now, right? So you've been kind of telling very firsthand the story of like the actual farmer who grew the vegetables that are going to be involved in. So I was fortunate enough to, I'm going to be here tonight for this dinner with my friend Eric Weisman, who's also been a guest on this podcast in the past. He's a musician and he runs a company out in San Francisco. And you guys are, let's talk a little bit more about how specifically you're getting, so you're talking to the farmer and you want to make it not just a dinner, right? You want to make it a story. So how are you guys doing that?
Do you want to talk about the...
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, I think instead of bringing, so the chefs we have involved, one of them is Ben Runkle, who is kind of our go-to. I mean, he's our
become
culinary force.
Well, yeah, I mean, he really, we called him one time and basically invited him to be a part of the first dinner we ever did.
Yeah.
And he right away proved to be the most dedicated and hardworking. And, I mean, we can revisit this, but like everybody in our team is sort of accidents. Like we meet this person who's so passionate and driven and believes in what we're doing that we're like, we're going to make a place for you. And Ben is that person, and he's been stuck with us through the whole time. And we're now like, how do we now develop and build a better story with you? And what are your goals? What are your visions? What are your inspirations? And one of Ben's is, telling the stories of food sourcing and projects, and then also working with new chefs and developing stories about food. And so what better thing could we bring into the fold than a chef that's that passionate about what he's doing?
Yeah, so you were telling me about this, so Ben came in.
Yeah, so Ben will be, kind of the host chef, if you will, for the event. And then our guest chef is Todd Duplichon. I always pronounce it wrong.
Duplichon, I believe?
Yes.
Duplichon.
Okay. Anyway,
Todd
he
D.
is...
Todd
so
D. We're bad.
Todd D. He is the chef owner of an amazing, really buzzy restaurant, Lenoir in Austin. But it's to us more about, or less about bringing in, a buzzed about chef and just having like a trendy dinner. It's really kind of telling their stories as, food purveyors through the meal. And so they're very involved with all of our dinners. The chefs who are participating are engaging with the guests. The people seated at the dinner are learning about, the sourcing process and the chefs themselves, like through this experience.
Yeah.
And I think, so it's more to us than just like having people sit down to a crazy, amazing meal. It's the conversation and community and meeting new people across the table and,
Yeah, well, I think stories come out of that. I mean, I think that this is like what we've talked about a lot is like when you sit down at a table with people and you start having a conversation, people tell stories. And you find the next thread.
That's
in
what's
that
amazing to me.
conversation.
Actually, I couldn't have predicted this episode going as well as it has, because like a lot of the core of what you're doing is exactly the core of, Small Business War Stories. Why I've traveled 12,000 miles and, interviewed all these people is about that, right? So it's a really good way to celebrate the 100th episode of
Thanks for doing it with us, man.
No. And you're talking about, like, I think when you put it out there into we're getting a little woo-woo with the universe and, like, saying, like, really living and something that you're passionate about, things like these find you, right? So like we were connected by a mutual friend, Brendan Anthony, who is actually friends with my friend Peter Lake from grad school, and it's like 2 degrees of like connection. And we were having dinner in Austin, and this came up, and like, oh yeah, we should have him on the show, and that's how it all came out and it came together. So
yeah, I mean, it's funny. We were like yesterday, Ellee Hussey, we have 2 Ellies in our organization. Ellee Fletcher, who's the co-founder, and we've worked together. But Ellee Hussey works with us on the marketing and journal side, and we were out filming Todd and Ben yesterday at part of the stories behind this event, and one of the things we started talking about was the tricky rabbit holes, which are like, and we were laughing about it because it's like every story has another story in it. And so while we were filming this, like the chefs going to the ranch, we met the owner of Bogga Creek Farm, we met the owners of Utopia Farm, like these, we start talking to them, and there's amazing stories there, and there's amazing stories that they want to tell. And we were like, that's a rabbit hole. Like we'll go down it. And like and we were laughing with Todd because like that's why he's so passionate about food. Is he's like the problem is he's like just like that. He's like you can get caught up in a single ingredient and want to go down the rabbit hole. And it's like I think that's the beauty of creatives working together is that like sometimes we go like a typical business model. You chase a couple rabbit holes, but you're looking for the ones that make the most profit. Sometimes I think with us, we like to go down all the rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And
Everyone.
we go down a few too many rabbit holes.
Which one looks interesting?
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yeah, so it's finding a
shiny
dance.
object. We're like, yes, that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that can be a tricky one, and we've had a lot of episodes about that, about chasing what I call the shiny penny, but that's a different topic. Can you tell me about a time when things went really wrong? I mean, I think the cops pulling the plug on Gary Clark Jr. is a good one, but tell me about a time. I'm sure with all the logistics and all the things you're coordinating, there's got to be a time when things were like, oh,
rainstorms.
There
You want to talk
was-
about?
I mean, yeah, we could go into. I mean, the main one that sticks out is the storm year.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened?
The second year, was it the second?
No,
first
it was
year.
our first
year as
official
luck.
reunion. Everything was like smooth sailing. We felt really good about it. It felt like a fresh start, even though we've been doing this for so long. And then the lightning came.
Yeah, essentially, the sheriffs who were here with us basically alerted us to like a converging storm system. They're like, we think it's going to be fine. It's going to pass over. And basically 2 separate storm cells hit right over the top of us. And it was like a supercell, like landing on luck. And they were basically, you have to evacuate.
Yeah.
And this is going to be like this and this and this. And so we literally like ran our evacuation plan. And the thing that all festivals face in this situation is that like when you evacuate a festival, getting it back going is crazy. It's like it's almost impossible.
That happened actually this year at Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnic.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
I was there, and it actually ended up being amazing.
Right.
But early on, it was this insane thunderstorm and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think for us, and that's what happened here, is that it converged. We evacuated the entire festival, and then it stalled. And so what was supposed to be like an evacuate and we'll either cancel or we'll let people back in became the storm sitting over us and circling above us and basically having lightning strikes. And so we had half the people that were parked here evacuated their cars. The people who rode buses either got in a bus and were shuttled to a safe place or were actually like sheltered in place because of the evacuation time was so short. They were either in the headquarters or in the barn or
on
under
the
one of our
porch
tents.
at the headquarters. We actually have amazing photos of like the people.
The camaraderie.
I mean that's
well, and the
good
beauty of it,
things came out of it.
the beauty of it all is that it was a disastrous moment for us. And yeah, there were some people who were upset. Like we had to close the gates, we had to evacuate, and there were like lots of bad communication issues because we're working with the police force, we're working with us, we're working with volunteers. So there's communication.
And dealing with nature.
Yeah, and the communication's constantly changing, and someone's passing. It's like telephone, and your systems are down, and you don't have internet, and you're texting, and you're so it's out here. It's really challenging.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So what did you guys do? I mean,
we basically rallied, and as soon as the police said, you know what, you can go again, but you can't do the main stage. Like we were like, we're gonna figure this out. And the fans that were here still, and the ones that were dedicated enough to come back, ended up having a more amazing experience because they got performances in the barn from people acoustically. I think that who was it that played in the tent that was playing during the lightning storm?
Lizzie snuck in there with a bottle of red wine and like her cell phone light.
She refused to not play. She was supposed to be evacuated, and she's like, I'm going to play anyway, and then sang completely unplugged in the tent to like the 100 people crowded in the tent.
Who is this?
Maybe Lizzie.
Okay.
This Swedish. I think she's from Sweden. She's amazing.
Okay.
But
awesome.
she was like, screw this. During the storm was in there under the revival tent. and maybe 100 people.
Yeah, and then Jenny
but
Lewis like refused to not play, and so she played in the chapel
with
Lucius and friends, and like I think there was like a whole group of people in there, and they crowded in and played in the chapel to like 60 people who just happened to like be peeking in the windows, and like everybody crowded in, and
and Alberta Cross and the Black Lilies like packed there's a barn.
And Dylan LeBlanc and
I mean,
they all played these sets, and like they just improvised because they believed in it. I think like Kieran Lavery, I think played in the saloon. I think like people just were like, I'm not gonna like let this like ruin the day. We're gonna try our best. And the people that did that, the fans stuck it out, and they got to see Willie in the tent to 200 people instead of the big crowd on the main stage. And it was just incredible. And like even like weird things happened. Like Bill Murray was here and like climbed through the window of the chapel and was running around like with like watching the shows, and people were just like, what is happening right now? What is this madness?
Of course, Bill Murray like emerged during the storm.
During the storm.
And he's just like running around, making friends.
Yeah, I mean, I literally went to pick up Ginny and drive her to the stage, and like he jumped in my back seat before she even came out the door, and I looked up in my rearview mirror and I was like, oh, Bill Murray's in my back seat. I was like, hey man, how's it going? It was weird. It's like one of those moments where you're like, you know, no, I don't think I get starstruck often, but Bill Murray's Bill Murray, and like when he jumps in your back seat unannounced, you're kind of like, oh. Caught off guard.
That's a big deal. Also, we had a Jimmy Kimmel moment.
That was
several years ago.
Right?
Yeah, but we had just ended. I think it was the first potluck dinner the night before, and Matt and I were the last ones here, just kind of making sure everything's cool. The lights were out. I mean, pitch black. And we're both about to leave, and this like black SUV pulled up, and Jimmy Kimmel got out of the front seat.
It was like 3 of them. It was like an entourage.
Yes,
it was like a whole crew.
Yeah, and so I was like going to knock on the window to be like, hey, like we're closed. And Jimmy Kimmel got out, and he was like, did we miss the party? And so I'm going like stealing vodka from the bar for the next day. I'm like, do you want a swig? It was.
We ended up like taking them up to Willie's clubhouse, and they all hung out all night and played poker and hung out. I mean, it was like, but there's so many.
It's just like weird stuff.
Every challenge evolves into something interesting with this organization. I think, you know, we've had a lot, like, you know, we've had to rebrand things. We've had a million instances where we didn't think the event was going to be funded like a week out, and we just had to like scramble and figure things out. Or like we've had artists drop out because of conflicts and had to replace an artist with like a day's notice and have to like find someone who's like supportive enough and willing to take the risk with us. I mean, I think sometimes like we laugh about like some of the agents must think we're insane because we're calling them like 3 days before an event being like, do you have anybody that wants to play this? Here's our budget, you know?
Yeah, so. And you get some insane art. I mean, I was lucky enough, no pun intended, to be at the show that Margot Price played in the chapel for this last one. So, I mean, how many people does the chapel hold?
The chapel holds like 55 to 60
55. So I was I was in the 4th row in this audience of like, you know, 55 people watching Margot Price. Margot Price is like, I mean, amazing. She's a third man records artist who's been doing amazing stuff, right?
And I think she was one of our Rainier artists, and like we actually met her in Nashville. I got to meet her and see her there, and I'd seen her prior project a couple times, but it's funny because I sort of found out about her about the same time that Third Man had just decided to sign her. Yep. And I came to one of her shows, I think right before she got signed, and was just like, wow, okay, like this is
she's a complete
cool.
badass. I mean, she plays keys, drums, sings, guitar, and like I also love the duet she does with Paul Cawthon when they do.
Totally.
You're the reason our kids are ugly, right?
Yeah. So I mean, she's become like part of our family too. Like she's always says yes when we like reach out, and I think like, but the first year that we had her here during the rainstorm, we were shut down that stage, and we were trying to figure out how to get it going, and we're standing there brainstorming out how do we fit all these sets, and we're gonna have to cut everybody's set. We got to work this out. Who can we put on first? Who can get in there? And I swear she jumped out of the bushes with like a bottle of wine or something. I can't remember what she had in her hand, but it was like, me and my boys can be up there in 5 minutes, like flat, no strings attached. Like we'll be up there playing. Just put us on stage. Yeah. And I was like, I like her. We were all just like, listen, you're part of the family now.
I'm pretty sure you could give Margaret a string of fishing line and an empty can of of sardines, and she would make some awesome music.
Exactly. For sure. So it was cool.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. That's awesome.
Really, I mean, we've had, we could go on for like little war stories all day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that.
What's the craziest thing that's ever happened? I mean, I think, let's try to see if there's anything crazier than Bill Murray climbing through the window of the chapel during a storm. But
I mean, that's my top.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we have, there's a little Wild West. I mean, we always have weird things. We've had, people like lost, and we've had like
Baby
police.
rattlesnake nest.
Yeah, well, that was like a
the
fake
first
buzz.
year.
We've had the police pull the plug on Jim James as well one year, and when he played here, and we actually like.
Why did they do that?
It was just curfew, and
Curfew.
we basically just hit the like hours of curfew, and they were like, we have to pull the plug, and they cut us off a little early, and the buses weren't here yet. Like the buses hadn't gotten back, so everybody stormed the buses, and there was no buses, and so that year was challenging, and it created like a huge thing. But like at the end of the day, generally most of our fans are peacekeepers, and they support us, and like there's always a group of people who, like anything, feel like I paid for this, I deserve something. And like we always try to, work with those people. And I think it's just like that's the challenge of throwing a music festival is you're sort of a hospitality company in a way. And people always expect if they pay money, they get the result, this is how it goes. And like they don't know what's going on behind the doors.
Yeah.
They don't know what we're going through. Like they don't realize that there's really no money and that this whole thing doesn't make sense. And there's the reason your drinks are free all day is because we bought them. That they're being comped, and that it's all of a tasting thing. Like they don't realize what we go through to make these things happen.
Yeah,
and
I think
so
most people
understand.
do though. I think you're talking about a tiny exception. Like that's. I mean,
the tiny loudest exception.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I can count. I mean, I've been here 2 years, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people here. I can count in like one hand the number of people that I've come across that kind of like remotely meet that sort of. I think most people really love being here. And
Absolutely.
Well, and I think that's our biggest pride is that we make it something where no matter how we give away the tickets or what we do with tickets or how we do it, we want the biggest fans here. We want the
so let's
people
talk
who are
about that
passionate.
because that's a really interesting thing. You guys started out as an underground thing where you had to know somebody who knew somebody.
Yes.
Now it's sort of, it's public-ish.
Yeah.
Right? It's like weird the way you guys, not weird, I don't want to say weird in a bad way, but it's definitely unique the way you guys release tickets in batches and you have to be a part of a mailing list. But pretty much anybody who's interested, as long as you're on the mailing list, can get in, right? So how do you guys, and as this evolves and grows, right? And the Lux Social thing tonight, that's a pretty small event. That's only 50 seats.
It's 50 people.
Right? And that was released in a very sort of like Instagram story, must subscribe to this list, and then maybe you'll get a code thing. So how is this all evolving from completely underground to something that people can access without losing the authenticity and the story?
Right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think obviously got to a point where we needed to put tickets on sale. We needed to sell tickets, not just, put people on a guest list. But like Matt said, I think our goal still remains, like we want the biggest fans here. And I think the best way we've found to kind of target those people and make sure that they can be included is through this kind of sneaky, like almost treasure hunt situation. Like you have to actually be engaging with the Luck Reunion and Luck Journal brands to have that opportunity.
Right.
And let's not get it wrong, it costs a lot of money to put on a music festival.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. It's a big production, and there's a lot of risk because if it doesn't go well, we lose a lot of money. Like we're putting our necks on the line with all these contracts with every artist to like hold up our end of the deal.
Yeah.
And so we have to pay the bills. We have to charge tickets. We had to figure that out. That model had to be figured out. We couldn't take advantage of artists. And so we've been working on that model, but at the same time, when your audience is as big as ours, like it's hard to filter out the people who just have the deepest pockets.
Deepest pockets and the scalpers. How do you deal with scalpers?
Yeah, well, I think that, that's why we do these weird ticket systems.
Yeah.
We really have like such a small margin of tickets that are bought by bots and things compared to any other festival's margins because we make the tickets really hard to understand. I think even scalpers are like, how do we do this? Like, I don't even know how to scalp this or get the tickets. And I think there's a few people who like try to mark it up and make a profit or whatever, but generally because we make the tickets so hard to get a hold of, I think it prevents that. It's funny
you say that. The first year, so the second year I was on the ball and I could get, I got a ticket.
Yeah.
But the first year, you guys were sold out, and Paul Hedrick from Tecovas told me about it, and I got a ticket on Craigslist. But the lady sold it to me at face value because I'm a musician in town and I play. I'm part of the community in Austin, and she kind of understood that I was coming here because I cared. And she was like very much like, I'm so glad they're going to somebody who cares.
Yeah.
And even the people who are reselling them have that sort of ethos.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of people who have like, honestly, there's probably fans out there that have as much ownership in their minds as like we do. I think that like half of our crew is fans who just reached out to us and were like, I refuse to not work with this. So find me a job. And so we brought them into the team.
Well, I wear my Luck Reunion denim jacket around town. I get a lot of compliments on it.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. What would you guys say is the number one for people thinking about? I mean, what you guys are putting together is pretty wild and out there, and I'm sure when we do a follow-up podcast in a year or two, it's going to have changed even more. In maybe episode number 200. But what is the number one piece of advice that you would give to people who are thinking about starting something, who maybe have a dream to turn a vision into a reality, and maybe somebody who's running their business and struggling right now? What's the number one piece of advice you would share with them?
I would say
maybe one from each one of you.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing from my perspective is like, it's going to be one of the hardest things you ever do in your life. Like, perseverance is key, because it's no matter how good your idea is or how hard you work, there's going to be so many challenges that are unexpected. There's going to be so many hardships, and especially if you're growing something that involves a lot of people, like, every person's a person. They all have their goals and dreams and their needs and what they need to do. And so, like, you always have to evolve your way of thinking and learning, and it's a huge life challenge. Like, I would say that running a business has made me a better person. I've had to learn a lot over the years. I've had my challenges. I've had moments where I wasn't the best version of me, and I've had to learn to be a better person to lead a team, because our team needed that. And I think that it's a huge life challenge. I mean, so I think be ready for that if you're going to do it. And then if you do that, there's amazing rewards in it. Like, running your own business is incredible in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you have to stick to that vision and believe in it and work that hard, because otherwise don't do it if you don't have that perseverance.
Yeah. It's tough. I'm 9 years into my business, and it's the only job that you can't quit.
Yeah.
So you gotta figure it out. Yeah. How about you? What would you say is your number one piece of
along the
advice?
same lines, I feel like one of the biggest things is just the ability to kind of adapt and evolve with, the organic changes and, kind of horrible moments that are inevitable. But, I think just going with it and perseverance too, but just being able to hear your people out too, and just, changing your mind sometimes.
Awesome. Sounds good. Being willing to change your mind. That's a big one. It's been a big one for me as well. Awesome. Where can people find you? Let's go through a litany of your Instagram handles and your website. So you have at Luck Reunion on Instagram, right?
At Luck Reunion and at The Luck Journal, and then luckreunion.com and luckjournal.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, congratulations on something. I mean, we're about to head out into Willie Nelson's, a western town here to take some film photos of you guys to accompany the show. But congratulations on what's been, a really successful start of something I think really amazing. And I think, it's been a great honor to have you here for episode number 100.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
including us in this.
Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.